Today I'm going to be pissing off two of the biggest fan bases on the internet. I'm pitting Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker against Spider-Man No Way Home. And why? Because these two movies have a lot in common. They're the flawed conclusions to their respective trilogies and are often talked about due to the fan service included, and the behind the scenes behind both movies are similar. The Rise of Skywalker losing the original director Colin Trevorrow, resulting in an entirely different movie, and No Way Home not knowing whether or not I'd be able to get its returning actors, and early on not even knowing if it'd be in the MCU. But I'm pitting them against each other because No Way Home is a movie that I enjoy, and The Rise of Skywalker is one that I do not. Now keep in mind, No Way Home has its flaws and there's things in Rise of Skywalker that I like, but let's compare the two and figure out what's wrong with me. Also, it's December, and it's almost the anniversary of these movies, and that's good for traction. So keep in mind, these two films are both conclusions to trilogies, so the plots branch off the previous movie. So comparing them with that in mind, No Way Home has the advantage of leapfrogging right out Far From Home, jumping right into the natural flow of the cliffhanger. Although the main bulk of the film takes place roughly a month or two after that opening scene. The Rise of Skywalker takes place a year after The Last Jedi, with the characters well adjusted into the Resistance. Now neither of these movies have perfect scripts, but No Way Home, at least in my opinion, is consistent with the characterization and tone, just raising the stakes. Rise of Skywalker, on the other hand, actively works to undo the previous two entries established, especially The Last Jedi. I won't dive too deep into it because we've all been thinking it and seen countless of others' thoughts on it. Palpatine's return is a disaster, man. Last Jedi sets up Kylo to be the supreme leader and the villain without someone else pulling the strings, and now we have a literal replacement for Snoke, giving Kylo his entire goal for the movie. This comes out of nowhere, and yes, while bringing back the old Spidey villains from No Way Home also came out of nowhere, you can't tell me this is the plan since Homecoming. The film explains where they came from and how. The audience literally just told that Palpatine is here, no build up whatsoever. But other than that, if you look at these movies, the stakes in Rise of Skywalker are almost non-existent. Chewbacca and C-3PO have fake out moments where we believe Chewbacca died in a ship that Rey accidentally exploded, and C-3PO's memories of all his friends and colleagues have been erased, but both are undone in the movie. The question I propose is, why? Chewbacca's especially is undone only minutes after, so what was the point? Tug at the audience heartstrings for 2 seconds? The line, "he must have been in another transport," should be studied in screenwriting classes on what not to do. No Way Home, however, turns the status quo of Spider-Man upside down going forward. The death of Aunt May served the purpose of furthering Peter's development as a character, and it's never revealed that she was just passed out or Doctor Strange doesn't just bring her back to life, she's gone. Peter's final sacrifice is something that also changes everything. His high school education, his relationships, and overall life is going to be very different going forward on. Yes, they could very much just have him reveal everything to MJ in the next movie, but that changes the dynamic. It's not to say No Way Home doesn't have its share of fake outs. What? While I consider the sequel trilogy to be more of an ensemble, the Home trilogy's main character is Peter through and through, with everyone else playing support. Which of course isn't a bad thing, not everyone has to have an arc just as long as their main character does, and sometimes the movie can just focus on that. So let's look at Rey and Peter. Rey's story is about her wanting to become more in touch with the Force and coming to terms with their family heritage, so her arc in the last two movies. Peter's story is that he has to deal with the fallout of his doxing and later realize that being Spider-Man means he has to take the responsibility if he truly wants to fix things and save the day. Okay, to be fair, that's also the last two Spider-Man movies. This is controversial because I know not everyone loves this version of Spider-Man, but I love that he makes this mistake of screwing up the spell or giving Mysterio the glasses, because ultimately he has to pay the price and realize these things make him him. He can't have his cake and eat it too. Rise of Skywalker introduces the regressor twist that Rey is actually Palpatine's granddaughter. This would have been fine if this was the plan from the get-go, but The Last Jedi established that Rey was a nobody. It would have been a lot more natural if this movie was her embracing her family in the Resistance.
Rey who?
Resistance. And while that is a part of it, the Palpatine storyline just seems like a detour. It ultimately doesn't mean anything. Also, this is a smaller thing, but the fact that Rey's outfit is a slightly different version of her Force Awakens outfit, and her lightsaber is just the Skywalker one but duct tape, really shows how her growth as a character was stunted. Now we can get to the rest of the cast. Like I said, the sequel trilogy has multiple main characters with Rey at the forefront. So how do they handle the others? Actually, never mind. Rey was a pretty good character in the last two films. One of my favorite little details about her was her interaction with the nature of other planets, considering her sheltered childhood on Jakku, and her friendship with BB-8. And Peter's not perfect. Sometimes I wish the movie would slow down and show him just having fun, especially in Far From Home, but that's a nitpick. I originally wrote a section about nostalgia in these movies, but it was too long, so I'll keep it brief. Pretty much the villains in No Way Home work because they're not just there to be evil. An entire chunk of the movie is dedicated to Peter trying to heal them, and we get to see each villain's thought process on an idea. The other Spideys are definitely more nostalgia bait, but they're there to prop up Tom's Peter never stood in the spotlight or overstating their welcome. You can say Daredevil was a forced cameo, but I only feel that way if he suited up and showed up at the end to help with the fight. It's not that too big of a stretch to him to be in the story. I don't really have a problem with Luke's Force Ghost or Han, seeing as those were a given, especially with Carrie Fisher's unfortunate death, but Lando doesn't really serve a purpose here. They just didn't do him in the previous 2 films, so they're trying to find a place for him here. He contributes to the MacGuffin hunt and shows up at the end and reveals himself as Janna's father, which we don't care about because we don't get enough time with her. That also leads to my final point in the character session. There's technically not any new characters in No Way Home, but if you've only seen this trilogy, all the returning Spider-Man and villains and Daredevil will count, but the Rise of Skywalker, for being the culmination of the trilogy, introduces Janna, Zoe Bliss, the guy from Lost Whose Lines Could Have Went to Rose, General Pride, Dio, who's probably the most blatant example of trying to sell a toy. It's just too many. I did give No Way Home a pass with everyone except for Peter being a side character, but at least we know Ned, MJ, Nate, Happy, and Doctor Strange. We didn't need these characters, especially when they take away from characters who already could have gotten more material. Rose, for example, I think got her role downplayed in this one because of all the hate the actress received for The Last Jedi. And I think that Disney were kind of cowards in not sticking by their guns and giving her even bigger role. Just blatant cowardice. Okay, I'm not totally biased against The Rise of Skywalker. It's an inferior movie, but I think that the technical aspects of it are a lot better than No Way Home, at least visually. I'm pretty sure a lot of it was filmed on location, which is always appreciated. The cinematography in the trilogy is pretty good. And while there's some good looking shots in No Way Home, it's a lot less visually appealing than the rest of the trilogy. I also don't really notice bad CGI unless it's like really bad, but it's another thing where I think Rise of Skywalker did it better. Marvel movies infamously have a VFX controversy with every release. The only time in recent memory there wasn't someone complaining was maybe Eternals, but then again, I don't think many remember that one. The argument can be made that No Way Home was filmed during COVID, but the Batman was filmed at the same time. He used plenty of VFX shots with the volume and turned out fantastic. I can't really give it that excuse. Even in the directing section, the action scenes are a step down from Far From Home. There's not enough interesting camera work to say John Watts washes J.J. Abrams. If you want to talk about acting, I think The Rise of Skywalker lacks a truly great performance. Everyone kind of feels like they're on autopilot, sadly. The previous 2 movies had a much better directing with this great cast, especially John Boyega and Harrison Ford in The Force Awakens, and Adam Driver, Mark Hamill, and Carrie Fisher in The Last Jedi. There's no standouts in this one, and if there were, I'd say it's maybe Anthony Daniels. No Way Home, on the other hand, has pretty good acting from almost everybody all around. Jimmy Foxx's performance is weird, not really consistent with his characterization in TASM 2, but I think Tom Holland and Willem Dafoe are really good. I always liked Tom's Spider-Man. He started off youthful with enough pep in his step that kept him pushing him, but here we see a lot more sides to him. He's desperate, he's angry, he's brought to a brand new low, and Holland sells it to a T. Even in a scene that doesn't really look great, he's still carrying it on his back. His performance in the epilogue, especially the coffee scene, is so heartbreaking but also so hopeful. Willem Dafoe has never turned in a bad performance either. He shows up, killed this guy's aunt, and I enjoyed every second of it. That sounds weird. That sounds really weird.
Norman's on sabbatical, honey.
The hell?
I say he's better in this than the first Spider-Man movie, only because he breaks his mask early on so we get to see his face. Like the moment he transforms into the Goblin, it's great. On a writing level, I still think they both don't have the greatest scripts. One had to be changed after the original director left, and one was banking on they could get back certain actors, and even have to do an entirely different movie prepared if they couldn't do multiverse at all. I'd say they're the weakest of the trilogies writing-wise. So this video is already pretty long, but one thing that seems to be a challenge in Hollywood is ending a trilogy on the right note. Even if there's movies I like, the general consensus for the third movie in a trilogy is that it's the worst one. And sometimes it keeps the entire thing from being great. But I think the movies we talked about today have the same problems that can make a disappointing finale in the trilogy. And I'm fully aware there's people that don't like either of these movies, but I think one prevails against its issues a lot more than the other. And the doctor still can't figure out what's wrong with me. The treatment of characters like Rose and Finn, the retcons of Rey's parents, regression to Kylo Ren, the cheap fake out deaths just made this movie seem like a movie that doesn't appreciate its previous entries. But I think No Way Home, even though I can say a lot about the things I don't like, I can say at least put a cap on the trilogy pretty well. And even though everyone knows there are going to be more movies on the way, it could be its own trilogy in a moment in time. And that's where the original script for the video ended, but I had my feelings change while making it. I still like this movie, a lot of my friends don't, but that's not really why I'm doing this. I could have compared any other movie to The Rise of Skywalker, which is still a movie I don't enjoy, like Prisoner of Azkaban or the original Spider-Man 3 even, or Return of the King. But I don't know, these ones have a lot in common and I just thought it made sense, but I didn't have the most confidence going into this video. Do I like No Way Home, or am I just saying that because there's enough stuff in it for me to like and not completely write it off? Or am I suppressing the way I feel because it's not a real movie considered to my friends and I don't want them to think less of me? And I always think that because I'm always engaging in stuff that's not really considered high art, and I do enjoy it, and I don't know if I enjoy it because that's all I really know and I haven't really gotten to the high art, or I actually do enjoy it and I'm just letting my anxiety get to me. I love this medium, I really do, and I want to work in it someday, but I just can't help but to feel inferior sometimes. Am I thinking too hard about it? Why am I putting in a video about 2 movies that's no longer really about those 2 movies and more about my personal feelings? I didn't want to make it feel soulless, and what's more soulless than pitting 2 big blockbuster $1 million movies and saying, oh, this is the one that did the nostalgia better, this is the one that deserves all the crowns even though it won billions of dollars, and that just feels soulless to me. Is that what movies are now? I don't think so, but I didn't feel right just making a straightforward video. But if you did like this in some shape or form, even though I kind of went off the rails at the end, consider giving a like or subscribing. I'd really appreciate it a lot. I think getting it off my chest helped the doctors figure out what's wrong with me. I'm just depressed. Eu disse por nosso amor. Eu disse